Hi, I'm Mark Sumner, CEO and founder of Robertson Sumner. Welcome to the Channel Chat podcast, where we will share learnings, best practices and failures with some of the biggest names in the IT industry, all with the simple aim of being the go-to place for IT sales professionals and managers to learn from others with the ultimate goal of maximising performance and growing the channel. Hello, I'm Mark Sumner, host of the Channel Chat podcast show, and today I have the pleasure of Mukesh Gupta in the house.
Hello.
How are we doing? MD of e92. How are we doing, Mukesh?
I'm very good, thank you, Mark. Thank you for having me here.
No, my pleasure, my pleasure. Thanks for coming on. So, recently on LinkedIn I saw that it had been 30 years for e92. Long time.
It's, yes, we had our 30 years celebration in September. Yes, we'd been, so if you're working out, so 1989 is when we started the business. Contrary to what people might think with the name e92plus, it wasn't 92, it was 89 actually.
Right, okay.
I may as well get into that, why we named it E92. It's effectively because we started dealing with electronics at the time, NIC cards effectively. 1992 was the opening of the European markets, and a bit of a topical question today, and plus means to continue. So our aim was to be in Europe by 1992. So that's where the name came from. However, our partners, or our customers rather, shortened it down because it was a bit of a mouthful to say, you know, when you're trying to talk to somebody, introduce yourself, which company you're from, to E92plus, and that's where the name stuck. And through the 90s and so on, you know, e-business, e-commerce, e-security, and so on. It's email.
Yeah,
all stuck. It made sense.
Because you must have been a young man when you started that company. So how old were you when you started E92?
I was 23.
Right. And what made you start?
So it's one of those right place, right time sort of event. I just finished university. And I got in. Somebody came up with an idea. It was within my family that, these NIC cards are an interest in. I think they were working for another company and said these NIC cards are really selling well. Why don't you do this for the summer holidays while you're sitting at home, waiting for a job in September, October? Right. And I said, well, as I was the only one available, and I said, yeah, why not do that? So really, it started from that point, and within 2 weeks of calling and talking to people, I suddenly, we got an order, and it was fairly substantial. And I do remember what the order was. It was Polytechnic of East London, and they wanted 200 NIC cards. We were just buying them from a local distributor at the time, and then pushing them out to the Polytechnic. And he said, this is the first order of many. And he said, we probably would need about 600-700 of these. So back in those days, on a network card, we made a very good margin on those. And seeing those dollar signs, couldn't turn back. Yeah, inspired you. He said, what do I do now? This can continue, or we can just call it a day at the end of the summer, and that's it. But we're here today, so the decision was made, just let's continue with this. And then as you continue, you start to develop new ideas, new ways of making revenue. You look at the whole marketplace. So it went from one customer to another, and we just started working in those areas.
Would you have seen yourself as in those days when you just finished university, as a sales guy trying to just sell to the market?
I wasn't a sales guy. I don't think I was never intending to be in sales. That was never my game. And I think I saw it as salespeople. Whoa, no, you don't touch those guys. You let them, you want to go somewhere professional type of thing. So I was preparing to be probably a chartered accountant or work in the city somewhere and that sort of thing. So I never saw myself as a salesperson. However, once you're in there, you actually, I think the motivation, the drives wasn't about selling. It was about, I can see there's an opportunity here. How can I get that opportunity? And that's what made me into if I put it today, a salesperson and I don't even class myself as a salesperson today. I think I'm more of a business person all round. I know how to operate the organisation, and I think that everybody is a salesperson themselves today. You go to an interview, you got to sell yourself. You got to tell people about how great you are and make people want you in there. So that's what I'm doing. So it's because I think it's important to understand what you're selling, understand the product that you've got, and really get that across. And that's what makes me do this, because I understand my business, I understand the products that I've got, and therefore I can talk about it all day long and convince people that it's the right thing to do.
Great. So obviously you've had 30 years in the industry, and I'm going to come back and forth into your period about E92, but I want to get straight into the channel in general, because over the last sort of 20 weeks I've had a lot of feedback from the guests saying the channel's broken, distribution don't do anything, they don't add any value, they're pointless, they were just a warehouse before, and I know you're doing licensing now, or they're just pushing out licenses. Yeah. And I want to sort of challenge you on a few of those points, because I get a lot of people saying all the time that, I said to you earlier, people in distribution can't sell, they don't really add any value, we'll try and cut them out of the deal, etc., which is actually making the channel probably harder to work in. So what's your overview of the state of the channel at the moment and how it's working, from reseller to vendor?
State of the channel today, it is working. It's always been working. If I go back a number of years ago, the word and the noise on the road was, distribution, it's going to disappear. There's no need for distribution. And today, 30 years on, we're still here. And
that's still the word on the street, but even now, isn't it, a bit?
Yeah.
Distribution over the next few years
will disappear.
Will disappear. We won't need it.
And I think that's where we will need distribution, but not in the way it used to be. The distribution has changed. The distributors have to evolve, and we're doing that. And we're finding different ways of being relevant within the channel structure. The key thing is that the distribution and the channel itself, we could step back and say the vendors could say, well, they could go directly to the end user. Why do they need resellers? Why? For the same reasons they need partners, it's the same reason why vendors need distributors to engage in and get those partners, to work with those partners, because they can't scale and do that. So the channel is the key thing. And will the channel exist? Yes, it will. Will distribution exist in that? Yes, they will. Distributors add, there are, from the warehouse days, which was value, right?
Well, at least you could see it. You could actually see what you were getting as value.
You could
physically
see that value.
Yeah.
And that was value because the vendors wanted that at the time, to where we are today, where we're selling cloud licenses or licenses in software licenses and so on, where there's no physical product, but it's a key and an email. But what we're doing is adding value to both, or the distributors are adding value to both the reseller and the vendor simultaneously at the same time. So if I break that down, for the reseller partner, we provide specialization. We can provide professional services. We can help them in financial models and marketing services like lead generation and that sort of thing. And it's not, some resellers will take all that on, and some will probably not need that because they've got these their own resources. But when there's a landscape of 5,000 odd resellers in the UK, you can see that not all of them are large ones where they have all the resources in the world, right? Most of them are sort of SME and mid size, and they need the resources. They need help in doing these things. So what we provide is a specialization. The resellers, when they talk to their end user, cannot bring all the specialization of all the products there. So, if I take, for example, someone selling in our world like Trend Micro or McAfee or Symantec, a reseller doesn't know the tricks of the trade for all those products or the knowledge in all those products. So they would use us for the trend knowledge, for example. the pre-sales on that, so we can do demos and so on, WebExes and so on, and the post-sales where the installation and the delivery of those can happen as well. So we're adding value there.
Yeah. Does the reseller trust the distributors? So they might, would I actually be able to utilise all those facilities? Because I hear a lot of resellers say to me, yeah, well, we won't get distribution involved in the deal because we don't want them to be cut out the deal. We might try and go to the vendor direct. So they're not even utilising those facilities you're talking about. So they don't see the value in what you're saying. So they won't even tell you what. So if I had an end user opportunity, I'm not going to tell you it's with Sainsbury's or whoever it is. I'm just going to keep it secret. I'm not going to say anything until I really, really know. I can either go direct to the vendor or I can just use you for the pricing.
Yeah, and some resellers will think like that. Luckily, it's not the large majority of them, right? It's a small minority that think like that. It's the large majority that actually do use us in that way, and that goes back to those resellers who actually do operate in that fashion. They probably do have all the resources that they don't need a somebody else to facilitate and help them in there, and they do work on that. But in those cases where we're operating with those resellers, then our margin retention with those partners will be very, very low. So it is almost transactional. But then there is other partners where we can help a lot more, and they use all our value adds that we do have. Whether it's we sometimes get smaller partners who have relationship with larger end users, but the size of the opportunity they may not be able to facilitate. So we help them in making that opportunity work and happen, as opposed to just flipping over to a large reseller who will just take the deal and transact it.
Okay,
so it does work in that way. Yeah.
Okay, so and for the listeners out there, if I was a vendor coming to the market, comes to the UK, and I hadn't got any brand awareness, but I've got a great product, but I don't know the resellers, and I came to you and said, look, I want you to market my products to the UK, what would you look for from a distribution point of view in order to take them on as a vendor? Why would you take them on? Okay,
so a lot of it does depend on. There's various reasons that we look at. So, in a lot of instances, that we need to understand the tech. We need to like the technology. We got to see that there is we got to do our due diligence and see if there is a market for this. Can we take this out there? So we do go through that process where we look at the technology. Inside our technical team will look at it. One key element is that we look at is, will that fit within our business? Could we use it? And a lot of the products that we do sell today, we use internally. So if it works for us, there's lots of businesses our size out there, right? That will work for. That's one area. And then can this extend to the enterprise? Can we take it to the larger opportunities out there? Will the product scale to that? So those are the type of typically what we look at. Why would a vendor want to come and use us? Because we can launch them fairly quickly into the UK market. We as a business deal with over in excess of 800 odd resellers, and we could promote their products, get them to all these partners very, very quickly, and those 800 resellers have lots and lots of end users. Again, getting the vendor's product out to the end customer in a short space of time.
How long would a typical contract be with you? So say for instance, you convinced me you've got 800 resellers. Yeah, I think E92 are the right distributor to go with, and then we sign up. And then I might want results immediately, 5 minutes. But how long would I give you to get something going? Or how long would you give me or manage my expectations of how long it's going to get going to see I can see some dollars?
To answer that is, we're a business. We want to see the dollars fairly sharpish as well, fairly quickly. We're going to put resources behind the vendor and the product. So we want to see a return just as quickly as the vendor wants to see it as well. In reality, it does take time. Yeah, unless you're a well-known brand, which is different. But if it's an unknown brand, or it's a new brand to the market, then it's going to take a lot longer than a well-known brand to generate revenues. Yeah, the product's got to be hot as well. I mean that does help. So I would say in terms of time, it's if we're making a good return or like a break-even point in a year in terms of resources that we put into it, then that's fairly good. One part of it is that I look at is where will this product take us? How it may take 6 months, 12 months, to get this going. But will it turn? Will the worm turn at further on down the line? And that's what we look into. Where is this product going to be in 5 years' time, 4 years' time, 3 years' time?
So every vendor you take on, do you look at it as a long-term play?
I look at it as a long-term play, because otherwise I don't want to take them on. Because if it's short-term, to get a vendor engaged and get them up and running and expose them to our channel, and it only lasts 6 months, that's not good for us. It's highly costly, and the reputation then of us, of that product, within the channel doesn't work. So we try and look for vendors that we know that's going to be for a long-term play. And over the years, we've done that. There's a few success stories that I can mention today. We were one of the first distributors for Barracuda. We were first distributor for NetScreen, who subsequently became Juniper. We were first distributor for ISS, and that was bought by IBM. So, in fact, some may not believe it, but we were the first distributors of Fortinet as well, right?
Wow.
So we were in the right place at the right time. Things change over time, personalities change, and that's why sometimes the product moves on, or the vendor's looking for multiple distributors to expand faster, and so on. So things change.
Why? And that's leads to my next question. So what's the benefit for the vendor having two distributors rather than one? So obviously you want sole distribution rights, yeah? Is that every vendor you do that because you put more resources into it? But why would they want to go to sort of two distributors?
So vendor goes to two distributors because they want to expand the market very, very quickly. So they with one distributor, they have a certain fixed amount of resources that's in play. With two, they'll have twice that without actually putting in any more themselves. So they can get to the market very quickly. So they can cover and expand and do that. That's the reason they would give here. The counter argument to that is by having two, then it's diluted. The distributors don't give it all their effort as much as they would if they were exclusive, and in some cases you see that out there today, that where the vendor is exclusive to a distributor, they can drive the market faster. They'll put more resources into place and push it out there. So it does tend to work. Sometimes the vendors want to use it as a nice competitive landscape, which make it, maybe it's good, maybe it's bad, I don't know. Maybe they use it as to keep us disties honest, as the words as the words go. But that can work. But certainly when the vendor is relatively new to the market, then by diluting it straight away, they won't get the best effect. If they're branded, well-known vendor with good technology and a good brand behind them, maybe they will do that because they already have got an X amount of business coming through already, and that they can work with. But a brand new vendor, my advice would not be to go dual, because you won't get the skin in the game from me as much as you would if I was a exclusive on that.
Do you ever have it where one of your existing vendors would stop you taking on a new vendor because they think it's competitive to you? So they might say, look, I've heard you're taking on Joe Blog Security. That's the same product as us. I don't want you selling that to the reseller community. Mukesh, I don't want you dealing with them.
Yeah, we get that. And the two companies I mentioned in the past, NetScreen was one of them that actually put us in that position with Fortinet, and that's why we probably parted with them. Yeah, and that really, so we stuck with the NetScreen team instead. You do get into those positions, and for us, my business, we would look at not taking on competitive vendors where we can. Most of the time, there's a fine line, there's a blur in lots of vendors do lots of things. Some vendors are buying out, acquiring different companies and bringing that technology in. So it's getting more and more difficult to say to everybody, well, we can't touch you because you compete with. So everybody's competing with everybody there now, but they all have their specialities, their niche, and so on. There is an overlap, And so we look at that, and if it's not huge, then I don't see any reason why we wouldn't take them on.
And what do you say to the vendor? I'm offering the best.
Well, sometimes the products, that a particular vendor may align themselves more to enterprise play, and a competitor of theirs may more be aligned to SME play, right? So there's a market segmentation going on there, right? So you can take multiple vendors on that in that way. Some of them may be great at one side of that technology, but not as good as something else. So where the overlap is minimal and small, that's how you can do that. A lot of the times we as distributors need to give choice to our customer base, which is our resellers as well. We got to make sure that we offer the right. We wouldn't want to take 5 vendors that compete with each other. That wouldn't make sense. But 1 or 2 you can more or less find reasons and different markets for each of them. So you can do that. But if a vendor is very hugely competitive, then we don't. We personally, as a business, try and avoid that in most cases. So if you look at our portfolio of vendors, then we may have a couple that compete, but most of them are very, very separate, because that allows us to focus in with those vendors and drive their products, as opposed to coming to a point where you can choose between 1 or 2. That's not how we work.
So if I was a vendor and I've established a relationship with you and we're onboarded, and I want to get my products out to the market as quickly as possible, how is it best for me to engage V92 as a distributor? So that, again, I'll give a bit of context to that. Yeah. I see a lot of vendors, especially on LinkedIn, we're having pizza day at E92 and we're doing this, we're doing that, and we're going to go and train them, etc. And it just seems to be a bit like, we're going to go and train them for a day, and then hopefully you're going to launch their products because you've got the touch points with the resellers. Yeah. So if I was a reseller, how should I be best engaging with you to make sure that you're trained and you're pushing my product out to the market and my product's getting the best awareness in the channel? So
the pizza days are great, and no one says no to those, and the spiff days and so on. But those are going to be a lot more regular than just a one-off if that's how you're going to drive it, right? It's about making sure that we're consistently drip fed the information, and the more times you hear the same thing, you buy into it. So that's quite a key part of it. So the pizza days are great. I think that the other part is we got to, between us and the vendor, we got to be very much open and transparent in how we're operating. We have relationships with lots of partners, and we want to take our vendors there, and they want to be involved in that. And we can only do that if we got an open relationship and a transparent relationship, and we understand, and they understand, and we understand jointly that the business will flow through this channel and this mechanism that's been created. We're not there as a business just to open up open a door for a vendor to go and talk directly to the reseller. That doesn't work for us, right? We're there to build on that and take this vendor in and build from that and really work with the partner afterwards.
So you talked about transparency there, and that's a word that seems to be very overused in the channel, i.e. we're going to be transparent, but actually I've got a quarter number to hit for as a vendor, so I'm going to go direct to the partner themselves and cut you out the deal. Or I'm going to go direct to the reseller anyway and not even get you involved in the deal. How can it be, say, about transparency, and yet there's so much sort of ciphering going on behind?
Well, that's the problem, and that's where the trust breaks down when those sorts of things start happening.
Why do they happen? Because everyone's interested in making this channel work, isn't it? Everyone's got to have the same goal. So why is it happening where a vendor will suddenly say, we're going through E92, actually, shit, we need to do this deal direct because we need to close it. Or they might say, actually, the top 5 partners in the UK, Softcat, SCC, Computer Centre, we'll deal with them direct, but you can have the rest. Those sort of things can't work, surely?
No, they can't. And some vendors do try and do that. My answer to that, if you want to deal with the top 5 resellers that you want to deal with, and you expect us to deal with the rest, then how is that going to work in terms of, most of your business will go through the top 5. So what are we there for?
just the long tail of what
it's the long tail of what we've got, and the amount of resources we'll put into that is going to be next to nothing then, right? So realistically, we need.
Have you taken on a vendor that's told you that I'm going to do X, Y, Z, and you can do the rest?
They have, and we've probably kicked back and said no, we're not going to do that. And we need to work together as a team, because there will be opportunities that we may drive here but end up coming through those partners, right? That doesn't make sense. So we want to be driving everything and be not worried about which route it takes to get back to us and to yourselves, Mr. Vendor, right? So it's about keeping, by having it as an open playing field that all partners buy through us. Then we know any efforts that we make, any marketing activities that we generate, any drive that we do, and there's lots of it, will bear fruit for us, whichever route it takes. So, and therefore, we're confident that there's no problem here. We just get on and drive the products out there. Otherwise, we'll be sitting there defending our patch, always constantly having these channel conflicts or conversations about, but that's my deal and that's your deal and so on. And that's not what you really want. You want a smooth flowing machine, if that's the word to use, right? That it just happens. Things just start happening, and no one's worried about where these deals are going. They're actually worried about how much more we're selling going forward.
So it's a joint effort, perfect world, that's what would happen.
That's what should happen. But unfortunately, it does happen as the way you've described it, where some vendors have got quarterly numbers to hit their targets, and they don't see the value that that single opportunity by closing it today. They'll get that deal in their books today, but they've just ruined the whole of the channel.
A relationship could be ruined on one deal. The transparency could be gone. Could be gone on one deal.
You're
for that
not
quarter.
necessarily going to ruin the whole relationship, but you become more wary about how people operate, and the trust is starting to break down.
Right. So on the flip side of that, from the reseller's perspective, what have they got to do to invest in E92 or invest in getting the best relationship out of you and be able to use all your resources like your pre-sales and your marketing, etc.? How do they make sure they're utilising that?
Yeah, I think the partners, the reseller partners, are going to think of us as being as part of an extension of them. So we're in business because if we can make the resellers successful, we're successful. So we have every reason to make sure that opportunity, that deal, and that product that's coming through us, they get to sell it to the end customer, and they support it correctly. It's not returned in any reason like that. So best way to work with us is be open with us. Yeah, use us. Transparency again. It's being transparent, working with us, and trusting us that we have no reason to take that opportunity elsewhere or do anything with it directly. We're a trade only distributor, so we would never dream of doing that, because our business will collapse the very next day. But that's what it's there for. So we have all these value that we add, pre-sales, post-sales, financial services, and so on. But it's all there just trying to make sure that we help the reseller be successful. So it's not in our interest to not let them win that opportunity. It doesn't make sense to us.
Okay, so if, again, going on the transparency line, if I'm a reseller and I want to be transparent with you, I've called you up and I've said, I've got a deal with, I won't tell you who it is, because I'm not being transparent, but I've got an opportunity and I've got a quote from you. Yeah, it sounds great, Mukesh, sounds brilliant. And then you go and find out they've got it from the other distributor. They've just got the deal's already gone through from the other distributor. Yeah. Where's the transparency in? Because that's got to happen all the time.
And that does.
So why? What's in the interest for them? Because you must be thinking, you've made me do a quote, you've said, the deal's going to go through me, etc., and then I've gone through Joe Bloggs Security Distributor, because they're the only other competing distributor doing the product. Yeah. Why would they do that?
It comes down to either we haven't built a good enough relationship with them that they don't trust us to be able to do that, and they've used us as a sounding board for price, and that does come down to it. That means we haven't done our job with that partner properly. They don't understand how we operate. They don't understand our value adds that we offer them, and we haven't built that relationship, that tight relationship that they can trust us, and that's why they've done that.
So if and I'm interested from your point of view what you do. So say for instance I had a great relationship with E92, but I go to Joe Bloggs Security every single time and get their price first. So what's your best price on this deal? Yeah, okay, great. All right, Mukesh, so this is the deal. Can you do it better? Yeah. So every time I'm going to them first, almost mugging them off because I'm getting their quote, but almost going through to you. if that was the other way round, would you say to me, Mark, you've asked me for 15 quotes,
Yeah.
and all 15 have gone through the other company? What
That's right.
the hell am I actually doing?
And it
here?
goes back to service. Yeah. So example I cite there is we all go and buy our commodities sometimes, like from PC World, or where would we rather buy them from? John Lewis's or PC World? We go to John Lewis. I do anyway, yeah. Purely because I like their service. I can trust them. They come across professionally, and therefore the pricing and so on. It does make a difference, but I know I can get that price as well from them. So therefore, I go back to the partner that I like to work with and have a great relationship with. So I may find a price elsewhere, but I'll continue to go back and make sure that my existing relationship with my distributor is good, and I buy from them. So I would say it all comes down to that service that you are providing to the partner.
So, in summary, it's a lot based on relationships and transparency, and yet there isn't much transparency in the channel. So what can be done? What can be done to fix some of these relationships, or fix the channel and make it work more effectively for everyone? Because that's everyone's goal, to be able to, the reason we started this podcast is to make sure the channel's working more effectively, and these issues can be put in the market and people can actually know about them. So how can we make the channel, apart from just saying everyone be transparent, which people aren't doing? Deal registers are going all over the place, and multi-vendor contracts are going all over the place. So what can we do to make them?
To get to get to that transparency level, it takes time, and it's about trust and making sure that we as a distributor deliver on what we say to them as well. So if we've agreed something, then we stick by that. And vice versa. It should be in that way. It does take both two sides to make this work. It's not just one way street from our side only. It's also the retailer's got to trust in us that and believe that we are there to help them, and we're not just there to rip them off or anything like that. Yeah, it's about, we are here to promote and make sure their business are succeeding as well. And that's what I always say to my team, is that we got to engage with the reseller. We're going to enable the reseller. We've got to make sure that they see this as a profitable line, and we got to help them drive that profitability. And if we're doing all these things, then they should have no reason to go elsewhere. And they should be more open with us and transparent with us, because they can see that we're driving their business forward and upwards on that product line or that franchise that we're working with them on. If we're just there, if we just go and speak to them and say, I believe that you do X amount of business with this vendor, how about you doing it with me? Then what's the value in that?
Value, yeah.
There's no value in that, right? So we're going to go in there and say, I believe you do X amount of business with this vendor. However, if you work with us and we work together and we're open and transparent and so on, as all the words I use, we're going to make your business go from X to 2X or 3X. And that's why you would work with e92.
Let's move on to talent and people coming into distribution, because over the last even 20 years since I've recruited into distribution, it's almost a bit of a, without saying, a bit of a dirty word, getting into distribution. Most people start into it and then want to get out. They either want to go and work for a vendor or want to work going for a reseller. So what's your view on actually sort of attracting talent into distribution, and how can we go about getting more people into it?
Yes, the grass is always greener on the other side. So wherever you're doing, you're always going to think, well, that's better than where we are today. And within our business, we've had people that have left us, came in and come back, and now have been there for some time. So they've tasted the other side, if that's the word to use, and come back and say, well, actually, it's better here. So it does depend what sort of person you are and how you engage. And I think it's different whichever level that you are working on. So whether you're with a vendor or a reseller or a distributor, it's different types of people suit different places. Nothing's easy, and every role is just as good as each other, the others as well. So how do we recruit into our space? So well, we do try and recruit from the ground upwards. So we're hiring probably people that were on the first leg of the IT career, and we're giving them the training and the processes and the support behind all that to get them going in this world, in this part of the market. And we put them through that process of through making sure that we educate them correctly on our products, our services. We even put we do a lot of basic sort of security training on with all our teams and so on, and expect them to grow through. I think the question is that why do they then go to the
well, it's almost like the lure of vendor land. I see most people in reseller and on distribution. No one actually comes to me when they're working for a vendor, or in fact, or a reseller, and say I want to work in distribution. No one would. But everyone seems to, when they're in a reseller or a distributor, want to go and work for a vendor. They all seem to want to go vendor land. Always, I've made it if I got to the top of the channel. Yeah. Why do you think that is? What's the perception?
I guess it's always perceived as the vendor land is the
holy grail.
The holy grail, there, isn't it? We've got there. Well, actually, sometimes I used to see it before as people who start off at reseller land and work through distribution and then get to a vendor. I think you're probably right. That has changed. They tend to just jump straight through. And I don't see why they wouldn't want to work at a distributor, because distribution is a great place. I mean, we've got some large distributors out there, small and large, niche like us, and huge ones who are operating profitable businesses out there. So we have we have the capacity of growth. We have promotion prospects and so on within what we do. And we are supporting two different types of customers, vendors and a reseller there. So it's a good place to work. I'm not convinced why they jump. Whereas we are in distribution as a distributor, as opposed to a vendor, you're not stuck with one product. You can have a look at 2 or 3, 4, 5, 10 different type of technologies. As opposed to with a vendor, you just got one, and if that end user doesn't bite on that one, that's game over.
What again? This is going to be a bit controversial. You probably won't like it. What the perception is in the market, and this isn't my perception, but this is the perception in the channel in general, that if you're in distribution, you can't really sell. You're a failed end user salesperson. What's your
I did say that in the beginning. Yeah. I'm not a salesman.
Yeah. But what's your view on that? Like people say to me, oh, people from distribution, they just turn up, want a coffee, and then go home. The partner salespeople, even if they're a vendor, they're just like, let's have a biscuit and a cup of tea, come round it, and then off again. It's obviously the different type of salespeople that you're meeting there, but selling is selling, which whoever you're selling to is very similar. It's the difference is I think in distribution that because we're working with. It's all about the relationship that we can, relationships rather, and it's the same with everything. It's about the relationship, but we're building relationships with the reseller, and the reseller's building a relationship with the end user, right? So I don't see that as being any different anywhere you go. Whichever it depends on what the end results are, and again, it really depends on what us as a sales team are doing with our customers, right? And as long as we should be providing them with value, we should be growing their business, we should be driving things and helping them to win an opportunity and so on. If we're not doing that, then that's the reputation we get. That we just come in and you're not adding value.
We're just sitting there and sending a few emails and doing shopping online.
Yeah,
yeah. But that's what. And if you sit in the corner and you do that, then that's what you're going to do. You've got to go and engage and really be talking to the teams, trying to understand what's the opportunities they've got, where we can add value into it, where we can help them into these things, and so on. And if we're not doing that, then their reputation becomes like that.
So the distribution landscape at the moment, with more vendors sort of going direct now, I heard from someone that distribution, and I'm really getting you interested in viewing this, would almost end up being more like a lead gen function, where they'd actually be qualifying opportunities with resellers who would then tell them from the end user, and then passing it back to the the vendor, just to sort of get a commission. Can you see that happening for distribution? Or
so I can't say I don't believe that will happen, because I don't believe that the vendors has the wants to. They may have the capability, but wants to invest dollars into doing that function. I mean, the vendor's better off spending their dollars in investing in their products and their technology and growing that. They get a better return for that. especially if they want to be IPO or get purchased, because the price to earnings ratio will be better that way. So I can't see that happening. I understand what you mean, that a lot of the vendors or the partners can see, well, vendors can see that using distribution as a door opener, and then we'll work it. But then us as distribution would probably, I would not validate that sort of that sort of a working environment with us. We wouldn't do that, because that doesn't add any. Then we are just basically an agent. An agent, and we wouldn't then provide the professional services. We wouldn't then provide the financial. We wouldn't then provide the specialization that the vendor needs to that we provide for them, so they can focus on doing what they're good at, right? So I don't think that would happen. And the other side is that when you look at a vendor to distributor relationship, and certainly a niche distributor like us, we're carrying that particular brand only, and we're driving that particular brand. We're specializing on that. We're not, where the reseller will be carrying multiple brands, of competitors there. And their job is to make sure that the end user looks at least one or two of their products out there, whereas our role is just to push that product out there into those resellers. So I don't think that we would ever get to that point. We as distribution have to change the way we work, and we have been evolving over
and
the years.
What do you think you need to change? What's the main things you need to change to make sure that doesn't happen? Because I'm looking at, and just a bit of context, that again, I'm looking at, I think it was Midwich who I don't know what they sold before, but it wasn't certainly security, but they suddenly opened a security division. I'm sort of thinking, well, the space to be in for the last 5 years was security, no doubt about it, and then you can say it's cloud now, but everyone sort of seems to be jumping on the security bandwagon and saying, well, I was a distributor of widgets before, now I'm going to open a security arm.
Yeah.
What's your view on that? Because you've been doing it the same thing for 30 years, so...
Yeah, no, it's good to see that even some of the bigger companies are recognizing that security is a good market to be in, and are jumping into that, and that just goes to show that we e92 has made the right.
You picked the right space.
Space over the years, and are growing with that. So we've done the right thing. So, so someone like Midwich coming into that's good. And as products commoditize, that will generally happen. As the market space commoditize, then it does get down to where the products are being can be pushed by the larger distributors, where it's very low margin and transactional, and that's great. And then as the model shifts to that, we then, as us, will shift to other products which are margin rich and are niche, and we can drive and add value to those. Where the product becomes more and more commoditized, then we can't add any value to that. We can't do any more than, it just flies off the shelf, and there's nothing that we can do. We are just transacting that, and that's not our model. And that will be someone like Midwich or someone else that can do that. But where the product needs to be driven and actually put be driven and put services behind them, and where it is more complex, then that's where we fit into that. So for us, it doesn't make a difference if someone like Midwich comes in or whoever it is. It'd be great, because it just goes to show that we've done the right thing in the first place, and we will continue to do that. Yeah.
What would you say currently, with your 30 years experience of running e92, is your biggest frustration in the channel currently?
Biggest frustration? That's a good question, actually. Over the 30 years, I think it's we've had our ups and downs. It's been challenging, but we've been adapting and evolving and changing as we go through. But the biggest frustration, it's hard to pinpoint that. I don't think the challenges have changed that much over the years. So it's about maintaining our relationships with our partners, with our vendor partners. That's quite key, especially as more and more distributors come into place, and start knocking on the doors to our vendor partners that we work with today. So that's giving them more choice, if that's the word to use, where they can go and take their products to. And that can be a bit of a frustration in the sense that you constantly being evaluated again and again and again in that way. So that's a bit of frustration, I would say, that happens, and it happens it can happen regularly, but most of the time, if you know what you're doing, you're going to be fine. You're going to drive, as long as you're driving net new business to those vendors, then they're going to be happy with that. So I would say that's a frustration for me. That continues to happen. On the other side, there's a general frustration of we could grow our business if we could get more and more people on board that are passionate and driven in the same way as the rest of the company is, and that definitely is a frustration from my side. Is that if you don't have the people driven in the same way and driving looking to drive the business the same way, then that can slow the growth of the business down.
MD today of E92, what are your sort of biggest sort of challenges that you've got to face, and what's the stuff you're doing on a day-to-day basis now that's sort of keeping you up at night?
I think that things that keep me up at night is ensuring that our relationship with our vendors is key, and we're providing them with everything that we promise to deliver to them. And as we grow, and as more and more people get involved in our vendor partners, then that's harder for me to manage that, because it's not me doing it every day. And so I've got to make sure that the people that are looking after our suppliers are of the same mindset and can build that level of confidence and trust and drive that business for them forward. So that's for me. That's from my side. That's where my frustration is. That my challenges is that I'm going to make or keep me up at night is making sure that there's no reason for our partners, our vendor partners, to be looking outside of what we do, and therefore I keep making sure that we are making sure we're covering all aspects of that side of things.
And my last question, obviously you've had 30 years, and I won't go as far to say predict the next 30 years, but in the near future, what do you see the plans for E92? What would you like to be achieving?
So we still believe that there's lots and lots of opportunity in certainly in the UK, and certainly in the space we're in today, so cybersecurity. So we still believe that there's lots of growth that's going to happen there and will happen there, and we're still as far as we see it, as we're still small in comparison to the market size. So we have a humongous amount of opportunity to go after. The market is still growing. Security is not going away. The threats are continuous, and they're evolving and getting more complex. So more and more opportunity for us to help in solve these problems. So for the next few years, it's about how do we capitalize on that? How do we grow with that? And how do we grow as the market's growing? So for us, it's about making sure, again, goes back to we're going to employ more and more people to expand what we're doing. We're going to be looking at territories outside of the UK, but UK is going to be primarily our focus, because we still believe there's a lot to be done here. If we were to expand outside of UK, then we would look to acquire somebody as opposed to organically grow it. Because
why?
Because it just takes that much. It takes too much time, and to land and expand in a country that you've not been in before or not known as, then it's difficult. It's tough. It can be done, but it'll take too much time. And in this tech world, time's not on our side. Things are changing so fast that by the time we established ourselves in France, Germany, or whatever, somebody else could have taken over. So that's the reason we would do that.
Great. Mukesh, you've been a great guest. Thanks so much for your time.
No, thank you for having me.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us and listening to another episode of our Channel Chat podcast. If you've enjoyed what you've heard and are listening on iTunes, please could you give us a review and subscribe in order to get the newest episodes as soon as they're released. Otherwise, as always, we release an episode every Thursday at midday, so hopefully you can join us then.